Hey, if you're wondering how much do you really need in savings at any given point in time, in this video, I'll give you the 3 questions that you must ask yourself to determine how much you truly need to be setting aside in that emergency fund. And if you're listening to the so-called gurus, you may have too much already. Stay tuned. If you've listened to any of the gurus like Susie Orman or Dave Ramsey, you've probably heard them say that you need to have somewhere between 3 and 6, and sometimes as much as 12 months worth of living expenses set aside in an emergency fund. Now, typically speaking, what that means is that money is sitting in a money market account or in a general savings account, making you little to no interest whatsoever. At the same time, you've likely got monthly bills that are coming in month after month after month that are attached to debt. And here's the problem. Number one, most people are paymenting themselves into a corner, meaning that every time they subscribe to a new service or take on another debt, they increase the amount of payments that they have every single month, which then increases the amount they need in that emergency savings account. Well, I want to share with you the 3 questions that you must ask to determine exactly how much you need in savings at any given point in time. But before I get to the questions, let's do the math real quick. If you need, let's say, 6 months worth of living expenses in an emergency fund, and your income is $6,000 a month and your expenses are $5,000 a month, that leaves $1,000 in discretionary money that you could ostensibly put away in that emergency fund to get you to the 6-month mark. But 6 months in, 6 months worth of living expenses would be $30,000. And if you had $1,000 a month to put away, that's 30 months or 2.5 years of doing nothing but putting that $1,000 away in that emergency fund. What I maintain is we need to ask different questions about how much we actually should have in savings at any given point in time. So first and foremost, know this. The problem with common wisdom or conventional thinking is it's very conventional and it's fairly common. Most people will say, I need 3 to 6 months, but they never question these very few things. Number one, is my job secure? If your job is secure, what is the point of having 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses? Sure, you could run into a catastrophe of some kind, but isn't that money better off being used to pay down debt or put in investments? So having 3 to 6 months when you have a very, very secure job might just mean that you have all of this money sitting in a non-producing asset. So number one, ask yourself, is my job secure? The way you'll know that is the company laying people off? Is the company having a downturn because of the economic situation we find ourselves in? If the company is on an upward trajectory and no one's really getting laid off, then maybe you don't need 6 months, maybe you need 3 or 2. That's the first question. Is my job secure? Question number 2 is this: how quickly could I find other work? There are some people out there that have a very specialized career. And if you've chosen a field where you've niched down, those jobs aren't really all that available, then maybe you need to be mindful of how long it would take you to find another good paying gig. If that's 1 month, if it's 3 months, if it's 6 months. If it is 6 months, then having that 6-month runway of emergency expenses would probably be a good idea. But if you're pretty confident that you could find a job in 30 days, then again, maybe 30 to 60 days of savings is plenty for you. Question number 2 is this: how long would it take you to find other work? And finally, question number 3 is this: what expenses could you minimize right away? I said at the beginning that most people will payment themselves into a corner. And what I mean by that is, by the time we factor in house payment, car payment, insurance payments, all of the subscriptions we have on a monthly basis, maybe a credit card bill, student loans, all of those payments add up to what we need in that emergency fund. But if you had a job layoff or if there was some problem, what are the expenses that you could minimize right away? So if you knew that your expenses were $5,000 a month, could you shave $1,000 expenses to get down to $4,000? In which case, maybe we just need 2 months worth of expenses. That'd be $8,000. And that's going to take you about 8 months to collect in that money market account. So question number 3 is, what expenses could you minimize right away? The key to all of these, to figuring out how much exactly you need, it's not up to what Susie says or Dave says. It is about what you personally feel comfortable with. When I was in my early 20s and recently married, I asked my wife How much do you need in savings to feel safe and secure at any given point in time? And the number she came back with was $20,000. $20,000. And candidly, I thought she'd hit the Listerine too hard that morning, because we were in no way capable of putting away that kind of money in short order. But here's what we did. We asked ourselves, what expenses could we minimize right away? We looked at all of our debts and we began blasting away all of our credit card debt, our student loans, any of our consumer debts. And what we realized was we didn't need $20,000, we needed about $10,000. And the $10,000 we were able to put away in about 6 months after minimizing some of those expenses. So know that whatever amount you are comfortable with is more important than what Susie says. And by the way, here's a little pro tip. Your goal throughout this entire process should be to make your life cheaper. I call it owning more of your income. The problem with most people's income is it comes in and it goes right back out again in their expensive lifestyle. But if you make your lifestyle expenses cheaper and cheaper and cheaper throughout the years, as your income goes up, you will have more and more discretionary income to do with what you please. So how do you make your life cheaper? You pay off debt, you decrease some of your expenses, and you focus on increasing that discretionary income. Here's a question you might ask yourself. What would it take to live on 50% of your income? What would it take? Now, some of you may hear that and think that's crazy, that'll never happen. But it won't happen until you ask yourself the question, what would it take for me to live on 50% of what I make? Not how could I live on 80% of what I make, but how could I live on 20% of what I make? That my income exploded, my expenses decreased, and I was able to put so much away in investments and save for retirement. So again, ask yourself a bigger question like, how could I live on 50% of what I make? And if you do that, here's the reality. You won't need that much in an emergency fund. Maybe 1 to 3 months worth is all, because you'll have access to so much more money in other places. Here's to mastery. And if you like this video, smash that like button, leave a comment down below, and I look forward to seeing you on the other side.